Awesome. I'm going to give a few minutes because it's the afternoon, and I'm not from here, and I lag in the afternoon, but I understand even if you are. Like, it's just a laggy time. So we're going to do a couple jokes to kick things off, all right? If you know me or you've ever seen me speak before, I'm a very punny person, so just buckle in, all right? As a programmer, sometimes I feel a void, and I know that I've reached the point of no return. No, nothing, come on, guys. That was, okay, one more. How do pirates collaborate before there were computers? Anything? Peer-to-peer networking. Okay, that was all right. It's okay to laugh at a bad joke, all right? You gotta, oh my goodness, I'm so excited to be here today. My name is Alyssa Nicoll, and goodness, I've had quite the journey of getting here. Not just to NDC or to London even, but to .NET. I am an Angular GDE and a DevRel at Telerik. A lot of people know Telerik UI for .NET. We also have Kendo UI for the JavaScript things, but it's a component library, right? For all of these different flavors. And I'm a DevRel on the team, and in DevRel, I got to know many people who were very passionate about .NET. And I was like, wearing over the years, being a JavaScript girl in this .NET world. And I was like, fine, I'll learn it, teach me, right? So I met a bunch of really cool people. Layla Porter is actually one. She's doing a competing talk, sadly, right now. But a person who just has started to influence me, teach me things. I don't know if you know this, but the world of .NET is just unimaginably large. Like when you step in as a new person, you're like, there's what to learn, right? So I was really excited, especially with my JavaScript background, as I started diving into MAUI, and maybe it's because it's the new shiny thing, maybe it's because it's, I don't know what my friends, I was peer pressured into it, right? But when I learned .NET MAUI and I started diving into it, I saw that you could actually upgrade your JavaScript app with it and use it to deploy JavaScript apps anywhere. It's very niche, it's very weird, but it's really freaking cool. I fell in love with it, and it's actually a viable option if you need to do multi-platform and you have a JavaScript app of any color, shape, or size. So I'm going to talk about that today with the tour of ponies. Are there any Angular fans in the house? Not fans, maybe Angular knowers of the Angular. There we go. Okay, that was a much bigger percentage than I want to admit that accepted. Yeah, I know it. I'm not a fan, but I know it, right? So I have this demo application. John Papa originally created the Tour of Heroes. It's sprinkled all throughout the Angular docs, and it's just this demo app that's used for teaching. I cloned it many a year ago, and I did the proper thing, right? I replaced the heroes with ponies, because I love My Little Pony. So it's now the Tour of Ponies. And so when I first heard this, I was like, I'm sorry, ponies can go everywhere? This is a thing, right? So I'm going to show you the web side, just to kind of I guess give you a baseline so that you understand not only what it looks like to create a web app, to run a web app, to host a web app, but then when you're taking that web app and wrapping it up to deploy it on other platforms like the App Store, that way you kind of have this baseline. So I am going to zoom in here on this video, and you can see I CD'd into the application and I ran ngserve, and I'm just serving it locally. I'm not building it or bundling or doing any fancy bits, right? So it has compiled successfully. I'm heading over to Chrome, and I'm going to do localhost 4200, which is the default. And now you'll see the Tour of Ponies in all her glory. And I'll scroll through. I've done a lot of custom CSS work. The front of the front end is just where I'm most comfortable. And so I put in Kendo UI components, but then I stripped them to their bare bones and made them fancy or added CSS animations. This is our drag and drop item where you can essentially put drag and drop on any element inside, and I layered it inside an expansion panel. I've got this side dashboard that was responsive just there, so that it went to the side whenever the screen was big enough, and then I'm loading in pony details, right? So pretty basic app, but what does it look like to deploy it on the web before we talk about deploying it everywhere else? So as we talk about things like the App Store or the Play Store, and I say something was difficult, I'm coming from the perspective of when I need to get something live, I open a provider. This is Netlify. Hashtag not sponsored, but wouldn't mind, right? If they're watching. So I open Netlify. I input my GitHub information. Since I've done things on Netlify before, it already is authenticated with my GitHub and it knows me. So I literally just point it at the repo I want it to go live. Then, because it's an Angular application and ngserve is just locally serving the thing, I need to give it a build command. So 2 inputs, right, essentially. I've got my repo that I'm pointing to on GitHub, and then I've got my build command that has any extra parameters or flags that I need to specify when it builds the application. I don't even build the app, right? I'm letting Netlify build it. And voila, right? She's live. You can scan the QR code or type in the absolutely no need to customize domain that Netlify gave me. It's very sexy, 6261E2. I was like, yes. I'm not customizing that thing. That's perfect, right? So this is how I am used to just programming, right? I write web apps in Angular, and then I deploy them with Netlify, and then they're live, and then I'm like, I did a good job, right? So how do I get them everywhere? On all devices under the sun. So these steps that I'm about to show you are from what I know. I'll mention King Gerald. I have gotten permission to call him King Gerald. He did a talk yesterday on Maui Blazor hybrid apps. So, and I will show you some resources later on if you're really interested in doing this. But this is all from my perspective as a JavaScript girl in a .NET world, right? So if you see something weird, maybe it's because I'm on Mac, right? Maybe it's because I use terminal. So come up and talk to me afterwards if there's anything that sticks out. But before I kick it off, as web developers, we think we're real cool with our Flexbox and our grid, and it's all sexy. I opened my web app in Android, right? Or I opened it up in even an iOS simulator, and I was like, oh no, my ponies, what happened, right, to my styles? So before deploying to the App Store, checking it on all of the different sizes is helpful, but it's very eye-opening also to web developers on what responsive means. So that was my little side note and caveat. But Maui on Mac, again, I'd never installed .NET before. So I needed to not only install .NET, but install workloads. And I had some friends walking me through this, and I was very baffled at the difference. I said, I installed .NET, right? I went to Microsoft.com, downloaded it for my device, Mac OS. I'm like, what is this thing about workloads? So you need both sides of it. And I kind of think of it as extra little niddly dependencies that are needed. But I used the terminal command, .NET workload install Maui, and that's how I ended up getting Maui. But the happy path, as I'm sure every single one of you in this room knows, the happy path for .NET is always going to be like a Windows scenario with Visual Studio, right? And so not only am I pushing this technology to the extreme because I'm on Mac, but I'm also trying to do it through the command line. So apologies if I break your hearts, but the happy path obviously is with Windows and Visual Studio. So I did at some point have some bugs, especially because I started using Maui before it was out of preview. And so there'd be bugs. So I had to start using Visual Studio, and I think I just fought that process because I'm from JavaScript, so I was like, I will use the command line, right? I think one time I was streaming. I do a stream where I'm learning .NET things, and I made the entire chat groan simultaneously because I vimmed into a solution file because someone was like, oh yeah, open that up, and I was like, okay, and they were like, what are you doing? No, right? So I have accepted the Visual Studio ways, but if you're like me, and you're having issues with your command line, just pop open Visual Studio and it will help you download what you're missing. But this is the crux of the talk. The last time I did this talk, I felt really, really disappointed because at the end of it, I got one person. I got a ton of good feedback, right? But I got one person who was like, I still don't know how to do it, okay? So if you're really interested in getting your JavaScript app on all platforms, these are your 5 steps, right? This is it. This is the crux of the app. We will walk through it. We will show demos, some recorded, some live. You know your girl's going to do some live demos. But this is it. This is how you do it. First step, create a new .NET MAUI Blazor application. I think, yes, that is a video. And she be tiny. But I'm just giving it a project name, designating where I want that project to be saved in my development folder. And then I'm creating it. And next, we're going to do the Hacky bit. The Hacky bit. So King Gerald did talk about this, but you can see online, I don't know, what is that, 7? There's a Blazor WebView, and that's our guy, right? That's who's going to allow us to wrap our JavaScript app up in this shell of a MAUI Blazor hybrid app and deploy it, right? And that's going to be the browser, right, that wraps our JavaScript app. So the inner bit here that's pointing to our root components is not needed, right? We're just gonna do that. That's what we're gonna do. We're doing. But do not remove the entire web view. We need that. We need that part. And that's the only reason I actually got really excited with the latest version of .NET, because I thought I would be able to get rid of Blazor entirely. Not yet, but the reason we're using a MAUI Blazor hybrid app is because Blazor is providing us with that web view. And so we do need that to render our application. And we need it to say host pages index.html, because for the next part, it's a little hard, a little hard to see. I built my Angular application. If you have React, if you have Vue, if you have raw JavaScript, if you have jQuery, whatever you're noodling about with, you have to build it like it's going to production. And then you take those built files that are needed. One of them is an index.html, surprise, surprise. And you're going to just copy them over, or, I don't know, drag them over if you don't want to copy, and it's going to ask you. It's saying, can I replace that? And you're saying, yes, you can replace any of the duplicate files, like the favicon or like the index.html. Like, I want to replace it all. There's also some extra bits that our Angular app is coming with, but anything in there we are fine with replacing, because we don't want the Blazor templating app in there anymore. Next, and probably most excitingly, is to build and run the .NET app. This says ship ponies everywhere. So I created this Ship Ponies Everywhere MAUI Blazor app that you saw, and I plopped everything into the www root folder. You saw me just drag and drop that over with the file system. And now you can do debug or release. I was showing you that, and I'm going to just choose my desktop, my Mac Catalyst, to show you. A couple of these videos were fast-forwarded. You're welcome. I did not take anything out or add anything in, but I did fast-forward it. This was on my train from Wales. Wi-Fi's pretty lit on that train, I'm not gonna lie. You can see here that my CSS animations, all of my Kendo UI components, the drag and drop functionality, it's all working, it's all functioning, and this is on a desktop application now, right? But it's a very basic model here. We're just using MAUI Blazor, the hybrid application, to wrap our JavaScript apps, which is really, really freaking cool. I think on this page, I show me doing it with Android. Hello, little robot. I think that robot's so cool. I get a lot of guff for wanting to do Android. I don't know why. On the drop-down, you go down, and I just had Pixel 5, and so I can get more if I wanted, but I have not downloaded any other devices yet. Run that emulator. And I zoomed in to show you. It's just taking a hot second. This is 10 times the speed, so you're welcome, again. I fast-forwarded that part because I was like, good Lord, it takes a while to build. She's chunky, but I mean, she's a chunky app. I think when you look at this demo app, it's like, we've got over 100 components, and I'm trying to use like a lot of them, so I get it. It takes a while to build this app. So you can see that as I navigate around, as I load different pages, it's working now on this Android device, which is really freaking cool. I'm going to scroll down past these are 3 different like list views that I've used, and I wanted to show how customizable our components are. So they each look so different because it's just me like theming it, me customizing it a little bit differently. But yes, that was it running on Android. And it was amazing, and I was so excited, and I was like, look what I did. I did a thing, right? And it running in the emulators and the simulators, like I said, was very eye-opening for things like my responsive designs. It's not just, if you really are truly going to go do this, we've actually helped a client do this in production right now with a JavaScript app that they needed to get out in production on other platforms. And so it is a very viable option, but outside of just responsiveness and, does it scale, thinking through the user experience is very, very important because, as many of you probably know, a web app that shrinks down to mobile is a lot different than an app that was thoughtful and made for mobile, right? So just a little flag on that before you start slapping things on the App Store, but have at it. So yes, we are going all the way, we went all the way with the ponies. So I'm gonna just show my steps on the App Store and the Play Store, but I'm gonna pop this up for a second because I don't know if anyone has not heard of King Gerald, but anytime I would Google anything around the subject, his name would pop up with an answer. So absolutely phenomenal guide to getting things up because there's quite a few nitty-gritty details, especially with Apple on their App Store, just to getting your application verified and yes, this is the certificate, yes, this is the name of my firstborn child, right? It's very, very detailed. So his guides are phenomenal. There is, yes, as experienced by me, first you go to developer.apple.com. And you also need an app called Transporter. We're gonna scroll up a little bit. Here, you'll see at developer.apple.com where you have to put things like the certificates that I was talking about, your identifiers. It's very boring stuff, very straightforward, but Gerald does walk you through on a couple of them because they can be difficult to do if you've never done it before. Whenever that first drop down on Visual Studio, which many of you are probably used to this, it was probably just me as a JavaScripter who was like, what is this, right? What is this UI? Instead of debug, you can do release. And if you're doing that for Apple, you get a file called IPA. Now, why do we need to drag the IPA file into Transporter that then connects that built version of our application to the developer.apple.com? I don't know why it's not all just on the website. I was asking my husband, he's a developer too, and he's reluctantly had to do some iOS development before, and I'm like, what is with the 12 different, he's like, I don't know. Security? I don't know. We always just look at ourselves and we're like, because we're both front-end people, so we're always just like, it must be something with security, right? So next, it keeps going. You have to go to appstoreconnect.apple.com, and I actually have this pulled up if we want to look at it in further detail, if you want to come up and talk to me. But there were some hiccups. Privacy policy. Has anyone here actually ever deployed an app to a mobile store, like any mobile store at all? Okay, cool. We got one. So they want a privacy policy even if it's just Tour of Ponies. Tour of Ponies is not taking any data. It knows nothing about users. It is like here's a set list of ponies. You can create a pony, as you might have seen in one of the videos, but on refresh it goes away. It's very I'm not storing any data and I'm not asking for any information. So I was very surprised that a privacy policy was required. And it's not just an App Store thing. It's on Play Store too. But there are a lot of options out there of third-party services that will help you generate your privacy policy, and then they also give you a URL because both stores, they don't want a copy of your privacy policy, they want a link to your policy. So you can, if you are not gathering data, it's free to create those privacy policies and get that link, but if you are gathering data, that's when they start charging you. So, and I'm sure you could, lawyer it up yourself and create one. So screenshots, really freaking cool, because I don't own an Android device. And so you can use these emulators and simulators to take screenshots. And I did get all the way through on the final stages on both stores using those screenshots because it requires so many, turn to this way on this page, so many turn that way on that page, and we can walk through that in a minute. But rights to your firstborn, of course, and my first rejection. I think I have a picture here. This was actually my second rejection where I got the furthest, but I don't know if you can see, and I probably should have seen this coming, but I don't know if you know this. I don't have Hasbro rights to My Little Pony, right? I got bright red whenever I got that back. I was like, of course. So I have reached out to Hasbro with a request for permission to use for this demo. Haven't heard back yet, but their lawyers had this auto reply that said it might take up to 9 months. And I was like, I'm gonna wait it out, right? So we'll see. Who knows? Ponies might one day live on the App Store, but we'll see. It was very much one of these moments, right? So I felt very foolish because I was like, right, I don't own the ponies. Yeah, they're not mine. So I am going to show you Android steps. Did not follow through on the actual hitting publish button because I'm pretty sure they're going to say I'm a copycat on there too. So I actually just started on a new app that I actually do own the rights to. And so I'm working on getting that one up. But I wanted to show you ponies and the story with ponies. So this is really freaking cool. And I'm not I'm sadly, maybe not sadly, I own all Apple devices. I've only ever programmed on a Mac. But walking through their store or their upload process on developer.android.com was actually really, really streamlined, I guess. And maybe it was just because it was in one location and not 3 with an app you have to download to do it, right? So it felt smoother, but it still did have a lot of the same requirements. And you can see here as I'm going through the checklists. So at that point, because I got to copycats, I have 2 different fellows in my life who do iOS development. And they're like, yeah, if you had rights, everything else got cleared. You're good to go. And I was amazed, right? Because I'm able to ship, actually downloaded Parallels so that I can do this on Windows. So then I could even do a Windows desktop app with ponies, right? So it's a phenomenal that you have all of this at your fingertips. But I have a lot of people, when I first started doing this and I was really interested in it, who would come up to me and they'd be like, why would you do this? But why though? And I'm like, oh, goodness. Well, A, it's freaking cool. B, there are actual reasons. First, let's address the progressive web app. Native is always going to be better. Native performance will always be better, right? It's just, so I get that. With a PWA, I guess it's a lot more common in the JavaScript world, but you essentially are hitting all of these check boxes for things on the Lighthouse score, how accessible you are, your UX, but you're hitting all these check boxes and you wrap it up and bundle it up in such a way that it's very accessible on places where there's little to no network, so that once they download it, they have the application functioning. And then you can use things like putting a little shortcut on your mobile device to it, so it's and I actually have one of those where the web app has more features. It's called Neon Mob. So here I have the actual mobile app, and right next to it, I have the PWA link to go to the website on my mobile device. So PWA is an option, but there is a lot of things, even hardware, right? Interaction with hardware that it's not a thing, it's a website, right? Why not Universal or Electron? We can talk after, but Electron specifically gives me the heebie-jeebies. It's just burned a lot of JavaScript developers in the past, and it's not very performant. But if you want to have that argument with me in the hallway, I'm down. I'm totally down. But this is the main one. This is the main crux of the why. And that's a link, and we'll go to that link in a minute. But interop, right? Being able to, we touched on it, the hardware, being able to access things like maybe the compass, like maybe the flashlight, like the file system. It's really, really powerful, and it's very, very much possible. So I'm going to show a little bit of interop between a web app. Again, ponies, she got me so far, but you got to have rights. So we're going to jump over to my to-do app to look at some interop. And doing it live, right, as advised by absolutely no one ever. I was in the hotel room right before this. I kid you not. I got it running on my to-do app. I got it running on all 3, and I was like, we're good. Let's go. I get here to the venue, and I open it, and my iOS simulators are missing from Visual Studio. And my friend was like, did you press that update that just got released? I was like, of course I pressed that update that just got released. And she was like, why would you do that? And I was like, because I like to be up to date. So we'll see how she does on stage. But just, this is the word of caution. We're going into live space. So let's do it. Boo, boo, boo. OK. First, I'm going to show you the Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to see, I think I have it running so that we wouldn't have to wait. So I do have it running, and I just ran ngserve, like I did in that video earlier, to serve the application locally. And so I'm going to show you, this is her? Yes, this is her, in case you are like, I want to see how you did the interop, or I want to see how you wrapped that thing. Oh my God, you're not seeing it? Why didn't you guys tell me? How long were you going Oh my wordy-gurdy. You goobers. All right, hang on. I gotta do the mirroring thing. Yeah, oh my, for heaven's sake. All right, well, there's terminal, it's beautiful. It's serving up our application, and we're gonna go, and this is in Visual Studio Code that I have it open. And this is where you can go if you want to look at like how I wrapped it up. The to-do, actually, let me refresh. I have web, I have internet, I have web. Yes, I'm gonna refresh. Watch it not refresh. Yeah, I like pushed up to clean it up for you right before this. So to-do wrapper 6 new, yeah, she is named that, and I have no regrets. That is our MAUI application, our MAUI Blazor hybrid app. To-do is our JavaScript application. So if you want to check it out and see how I did this, because I'm about to show you all of the nitty-gritty bits. But let us go to localhost and check her out. I'm going to open up, and I am a very lazy developer, so I did not put in I do have a license to our product, but can you just like ignore the warnings? Okay, thanks. I'm like, I promise I have a license. I will eventually one day get there. But whenever I'm like whipping up these demo apps, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted to see. I was hoping we'd see that. So we're gonna go, I'm gonna clear this out real quick and scroll all the way down to the bottom. If you clone this, there's like to-do cards. I don't know really what else to call them, and we're like typing add it, and it adds the cards, right? Like, so it's like a to-do list. But if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, I've got this like little section here called Interop bits. And this is the portion that I was attempting to use. Let me show you on beautiful learn.microsoft.com. I'm like, make it bigger. Oh, maybe too big. Okay. So this is the link that's in my slides, but if I can actually get down here, it is, if we go to platform integration and then underneath device features, that's where you actually find whether it's for Android, whether it's for iOS, whether it's for Windows, whatever you're trying to access, essentially have the API to which you can access hardware-y bits, right? The Interop. So this has been like phenomenal in me learning how to do it. There was the other side that I'll talk to you in a minute, maybe not too much on because you're not very big on the Angular, but both sides have to talk to each other, right? Both sides have to be looking for this. And it's kind of a little weird because we're building up the JavaScript side, and then we're like actually packaging it, building it, and shipping it off, and it doesn't even know about .NET yet. It doesn't even know, so let me show you what I'm talking about. When I go to my code, here we've got this same section with the Kendo card that's just a card that's holding these buttons, right? And the first button that we're going to look at is Get Device Info. So if I go over to my TypeScript file, one of my friends is like, if you want to be okay in this crowd, you know, like talking about NDC, just start throwing out TypeScript and they won't be so mad at you. I'm like, okay, we'll still say TypeScript, right? It's like, it's fine, right? Like, we're all developers at the end of the day, but I do get that .NET has a lot going on for it. So in my TypeScript file, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see these functions. And here I'm just gonna like briefly, like just like this, because like I was really freaking proud of myself because I had a friend who did this and he just slapped on let me show you, where's my interop file? He just slapped on the interop file and it was super, super ugly and it wasn't integrated with the app very well at all. So I just kind of wanted to touch on like when you are doing this for JavaScript, you can actually build it in, like for Angular, for instance, I used these injection tokens, right? And so it's like, which is built into Angular, and I essentially attached this functionality to the injection token, specified it in the providers for my app module, and then whenever I'm like actually using it here, instead of it just being like this nefarious, like, I don't know, thing on window, it's actually injected into my app. So check out the GitHub if you want to see more on the JavaScript side. But for this right here, I think I'm going to do, we're going to do device first. We are essentially checking the device that it's running in. So I should be able to run it in one thing. You see like two different like printouts of like what the device is, right? and that makes sense. But we're in localhost, so I actually want to try and see what happens. And this is exactly, you would not believe. I think I was probably live streaming when it happened, when I finally got this error message. And I was like, yes! Because I just needed the JavaScript app to look for .NET. Obviously, .NET is not defined. You are not bundled yet. You're not inside of MAUI yet. .NET API does not exist for you yet, so it should be undefined. But like to get to the point where it would even ask for it for some reason was really painful. But once I figured it out and then did it properly, because there's always the janky way first, this was just phenomenal. And so I built it, put it into my, let's go ahead and we're gonna plop over to Studio now, Visual Studio. And this is where, let me scroll to the side. This is the Blazor WebView that's pointing to index. And this, again, in our www, that's a lot of W's, root folder, this is where I dropped like our index folder our index page and all of those other files whenever I built the Angular app. So here, if I go to my app XAML, you can see, and this is what I was talking about, where like both sides of the equation, they need to have like check battery, check number, I've got 3 different ones, and get device info. So for get device info, this is what's actually like then grabbing the device info, and I don't think you can see that, but, and like plops it into a string and is then going to display it in the JavaScript app because it's gonna pass it down. So let's go ahead and press, let's do Mac Catalyst first. Hopefully she runs. I mean, like, who knows, man? I did not sacrifice a goat this morning, so it's like really up in the air if the demo gods are happy they smile upon us. But I did record some of those ones in the slides earlier for you all because I didn't want you to be too out of the loop on what's going on. Okay, I think it's gonna run. Yay! Okay. So yeah, it's really not the sexiest of colors. I have to redo it. I apologize. It's very, very hard to see. But we've got our to-do items. We can say NDC. We can do add. NDC's added. Perfect. We get our little, it's added the item and it has an ID of 6. And I'm like, awesome. Okay, so scroll all the way down. We're gonna hit, and I really apologize for this next part too, if it works, because I got a little fancy with my CSS, and my friends were like, nobody can read that. So you'll see, it's great. Grab device info. This is just a pop-up. Really freaking cool side note, though. Flipping cool side note. This is an alert, and it's like a JavaScript alert, like, because it's on the JavaScript side, because I had alerts going off, just testing on both sides of the equation. And it's styled for Mac OS for desktop. And you'll see in a minute when I pull up Android, like, the JavaScript alert is now, it's now an Android alert, right? Like a modal or pop-up or whatever they call it. It's really freaking cool. So it does the first one, and then it's beautiful. It happened. Okay, yes, FFY2D is like the corporate name of my Mac device. So it's not as exciting, but that is showing my Mac device name. It's showing the orientation. Let's see how much fun can we have? Pixel 5. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's run it on Android. Android's always faster too, which is really weird. That's weird. Like, I'm on a Mac. Like, Mac Catalyst should be the fastest thing for, I don't know. I don't make the rules. I don't even know the rules. Building to do. Okay, it's building. But this has been really, really fun. I've had so much, just like being able to deploy to the mobile store, but then work on interop between the two has been really fascinating, and I've loved it. I believe in you, Android. Let's see, is she coming up? That's her from earlier. She's just like chilling back here. But she doesn't have the app yet. We shall see. We shall see. That's a good sign. It's now deploying to the device. And so this is over here on the side where you can do like the rotation, the screenshots, and that's how I got all of the information about the app and all the screenshots for both stores. And it's just plopped it wherever. I told it to put it on my desktop, but it plops it wherever you say to, and then you just upload it, and it just works. And so scrolling all the way to the bottom, grab device info, and that's what I was talking about with the alert now being Android-y. Right? It looks totally different from the Mac OS one. And it says SDK G phone ARM64 and orientation portrait. So I was really, really excited whenever I got this working because it's a very long chain of odd things happening, right? It's a JavaScript Angular app being wrapped by a MAUI hybrid app being emulated on a Mac OS. So but it's super duper powerful, and I don't know, just really excited to learn about this and how to do it. Let me see, I've got to show you, we're gonna do get that number. He is just a little bit of like fun functionality to tell if a number is even or odd. So we're gonna go here, click get that number. Did I crush it? Oh no, I just have to like really press. Number, 16, sure. 16 is even, awesome. Check that battery. 56% and energy saver status is off, right? So this is me just like drilling down and accessing it. If I show you here, I think I can like make this a little bit, well, I don't know if you can see it, a little bit smaller so that you can see more, but on check battery, I'm just, again, going into, device info to say the name, but then energy saver status to get the saver status, and I was math.flooring the battery charge level because it gave a decimal for that. It says 56%. I wanted to clarify this. I was playing around with the battery on different devices, and when I'm on my Mac OS, it'll say the power of my Mac. But when I'm on Android, it was always saying 100%, but I found some settings where you can actually specify, like, I want you to, like, emulate being at 56% or, you know, being in saver mode or whatever. And so it's actually, like, getting that from the emulator. I wanted to show you, what did I want to show you? Something else that I totally forgot. All right, let's close this. Saving my state. Boop, boop, boop. So we talked about interop. Let's go. Oh, that's what I want to talk about. I'm going to go back to my slides because I want to show you. I think you can see. Yes, you can see. I thought I was just like, it's like yelling into like a dark room and like nothing's coming back at you. For the longest time, I was like, why can't I get the battery on Android? And then, of course, I just started randomly Googling it, like Googling different versions of that question. And King Gerald's, one of his videos popped up, but it was about Xamarin. And I was like, what do I have to lose, right? It's 5 minutes on this Sunday afternoon. So I just started watching through, and he mentions like how for different devices, you have to give them special permissions, like even when you're just emulating them, running it locally. And so I actually went into my manifest and gave, it's down here and it's hella tiny, and I don't know if you can read it, but this is battery stats. So I gave it permission because when I have that pop-up happening, and then I have it saying my battery status, but I never, whenever I did it on Android, it just was nothing. Like it was just the pop-up, and then it would never, like it was just nothing. And so no error messages, nothing. And so I was like, what on earth am I doing wrong? So special permissions, if you are playing around with interop, you know, depends on what device you're on, is just like really, really useful to know about. Okay, are there any questions at this point? Because I talked really, really fast and we're a little early, so I wanted to see, does anybody have questions, or has anyone experienced playing around with MAUI Blazor hybrid apps? Maybe not for this use case, because I know it's super niche. Yeah? So it's a really weird world because you kind of have options of either place. my friend who was helping me learn about hybrid apps and MAUI in general, he's always been on the .NET side, and so we kind of had this argument, actually. It's like this theoretical, like, who gets to control the functionality, right? And for me, because it's an Angular app, in my mind, I was like, oh, well, we should put all the functionality on the Angular side and just pass it down like an API call almost. But he had a really good point of, like, it's being provided from MAUI Blazor, right? And so, like, and that's where that access lives. So I could see, because I did have, like I said, on both sides. I had a function on both sides. So I could see you doing it in either, and I hate that I don't have a great answer, but I feel like it might be less buggy if you did do it on the .NET side and then just pass down what is needed to display on your JavaScript side or to be interfaced with. But it really depends on what you're building. Like, I mean, if it's a video game, then it might need to be even more interactive. So, but with, Tour of Ponies, like, you could have either side do the functionality. So I'm sorry I don't have a good answer for that. It's very niche. Anybody else have comments or dad jokes?
I think you have permission problems if you do it in the WebView.
Oh, you think I'll have permission problems?
I've never used this before, but we used to use Cordova.
Yeah.
And if you use Cordova, which is WebView wrap as well, if you try to do any of that kind of native browser stuff, it just gets denied on the Apple stuff.
Oh, does it? Really? Oh, I'm excited though, because my ponies, when she got through, of course it was just the copyrights that stopped me. But when Todo, I'm actually going to submit it, and it has, I was going to try to actually go to all of the API, because you have this, I'm going to like zoom out because it's really chunky, but you've got like, not only the device information, flashlights, geocoding, so I was going to try to do like a little demo for each one before deploying Todo, so that she's like, and I'm really excited to see like access denied. I bet you they are funky with, but you did Cordova, that's awesome.
Yeah. Also, if you submit things to the Apple Store, the client just submits it again, the user accepts it.
So I totally was told that, and I was talking to my husband. He's like, I think it just depends on the day, like who's working, like who's pressing the accept button or the reject button. The first rejection was actually because I used the word. This is like a really good to-do to cycle away if you ever want to go to the App Store. I used the word demo in the description, and they immediately, like it was super quick, were like, no, we don't allow demo apps. And so I just changed the description, and it was like, not a demo, right? Like I just took that out, and then they were like, oh, it looks like you're trying to use My Little Pony, right? I got further down the line. So don't use demo in the description. And apparently, maybe do all of your interop on the, I don't know, on the, well, I guess maybe either way you might get called out on it. I'm interested to see what permissions, what App Store is going to do. Is Play Store nicer? Like easier to work with for?
Android's easy to push stuff to.
Okay.
The Play Store does slide breaks their APIs all the time.
Okay. Oh, anybody else? Anyone else have comments or any wisdom? Because I'm very new to this world, but I'm having a blast, like learning about, I know, like mobile development. I don't know if this counts, but I'm having fun. Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to throw up some resources. I often, you can find me on Code It Live with my fellow DevRel. Oh yeah, I'm throwing that back up because, again, like, I don't want a single one of you being like, I don't know how to do it, right? These 5 steps, that's all you gotta do, right there, you got this, in order to get your app up on any device. You can find me on Angular Air or on JavaScript Girl in a .NET world, Twitch or YouTube. And then, yeah, on Twitter, my DM's always open. I would love to talk to you all, but thank you so, so much for your time. Thanks.